Welcome, everyone. We're still letting a few people in, but I figure we can get started. I'm Carrie Lee and representing the Private Practice Network and introducing Paul. And Paul is a PT CEO of Rebound Physical Therapy, 28 years in private practice, and has two amazing sites, and he manages it all from afar as he's moved to a different location, and he has a lot of insight to share with us today. The topic is one duty a CEO can never drop: getting others to get things done.
Thanks, Carrie, and looking forward to this. You guys are getting a new presentation. I was telling Carrie, full disclosure, this is a hat that I'm going to go over with you guys. Sometimes I help pick topics on these things based upon things that are going on in my company, and the fact that I live remotely. This is one hat that I have had to make sure never drops out, because it's one of the major posts that I would wear boots on the ground, and I've had to work it out to where I do this from a distance communication line. Well, that's not ideal. I have to keep it in, because when it's not in, things don't go as well. But also for my executive team, my divisional executives, the folks over, administration and production and PR and marketing, if I was just going to segment it into three main groups, and then each of their juniors that are running multiple people, I'm going to be going over some key elements of that hat. So anyway, are we all good then, Carrie, on letting everybody in? We ready to roll? Okay, cool. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a little PowerPoint. Here's how I'll do this. I'm going to go through some slides and do some talking, and I won't be able to see you guys. Please put any questions in the chat, or if there's a word or a concept I go by that you don't quite get, let Carrie know, and she'll stop me right away, because I don't want to mow through something over the top of some misunderstood word or concept. Really important, because otherwise you guys will just check out and not get as much out of this presentation. So please interrupt me. If you have questions that you just want to ask, I'll definitely have time at the end on this one. I don't think this is going to be super long, although I haven't delivered this one. So this is my first delivery on this subject to a group like this. I do have articles that I've written on it for my executives in my company to share with them how to do this and what the viewpoint. There's a lot more data that I put together than what you're going to see today. I'm really just defining the post and action that needs to occur in your company. So here we go, and we'll definitely have time at the end. And from the beginning, here we go. Okay, you guys already know the title, right? Getting others to get things done. One hat you can never let drop, and I say that because I've done it, and that's why I asked Nancy to call it this, is because it's something that when it does drop out, we get into trouble. I get into trouble in my company. I've definitely learned from the School of Hard Knocks. This is one thing that I do inside of every meeting that I have with my executives. I just had one this morning with my VP operations, or clinic director, or whatever term you want to use, the guy that's over both of the clinics and overall the production. And I definitely had to press on him in this area. I definitely wore this hat already today, and I'll have it again later today with my VP admin, and then with my PR and marketing director tomorrow. And then I'm going to fly out to Kansas. We got some background. Yeah.
Can you define what hat is?
Sure. So a hat, it actually came from, the concept came from like an engineer, or all the folks that work on a train, right? The engineer, the dude driving the train has one hat, the conductor has another hat, the guy that works on the train, the mechanic has another hat. We all have many, many hats in life. It's a very specific post that you have, in this case in a company, but we have them in life for sure. And like for me, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a physical therapist. Although I'm not practicing as a PT anymore, I still have that ability to wear that hat. I definitely do video productions from the viewpoint of a PT. I'm an executive director or CEO, whatever term you want to use. I'm a volunteer for my church. I'm a committee. I'm the head of a committee of run a nonprofit. I run a management company here in town in Tennessee, the Effective Management Association. I'm the director of. Those are all different hats that I wear a given week. So this is one hat that you don't ever want to let drop off, and I'm going to define that for you now. But thank you, Carrie. That's a good catch. You see my little graphic there. You're in the middle. If you're the CEO, owner, executive director, or even a divisional head, if you're on here and you run a division, you're going to need to wear this hat in your division. So first, let me start more broadly with a definition. This is the only definition, but a definition of an executive. Check this out. One who obtains execution of duties, programs, and actions in an organization to further the aims and purposes of that organization. So it can be just executing duties, particular programs like you might have a new production, you might have a new program that you're going to unleash in your company for some new delivery line in one of your rehab services, or it might just be a program for hiring or something like that, right? It says, and actions in an organization to further the aims and purposes. So it's a very much a purpose-driven activity. For being an executive, driven by purpose. Check out where executive comes from. Executive is derived from the word executor, which means a person who gets something done or produced. Comes from Latin ex or ex, meaning completely, plus sequi, to follow, and means to follow through to the end. Okay. I can tell you many times our staff is banking on the chance that maybe we won't follow through on the thing that we asked them to do. And that's one of our hats here that I'm going to break down and define. But the hat of an executive is really to get things done, get them executed, get them completed. So before I get into the one hat that I find people dropping out, probably the most, and they revert to the other two that I'm going to define, because they're more comfortable, your production hat or your organizing hat. But three most important executive attributes. One, as an executive, you must have the knowledge of the organization, or you're going to have the greatest knowledge, actually, knowledge of the organization, able to perform better every single job in the organization than the personnel performing it. Now, that does not mean that you need to perform every one of those jobs, which is too many executives try to do, and they rip their executive hat off and they become the main producer of some function or activity in the organization just because they're better at it. Doesn't mean that just because you're better at it, you have to do it. It just means you have to be able to perform it better. It means that if you were to hold that post, you could probably do it better than anybody in your company. And I know that would be the case for me, with the exception right now of the billing and collections hat. While I may not know how to operate the entirety of the software system, I could definitely do the job in short order once I was trained up. That's really the point, right? You need to be able to perform better than anybody else in the organization as an executive. So you have to know a lot about the functions that you're managing. Two, this is really important. There's a human element to this as well as an organizing element to this particular point number two. Ability to get along with people and aid them to understand their duties. You're aiding them to understand their duties, the whys and the wherefores of their posts. Those hats that they wear, those various posts. Many people in our companies have more than one hat that they wear. There's a difference between reception, receiving the public and answering the phone, and routing communication or bodies through the organization than scheduling patients. Two different hats, right? They have to understand that that's different also than the finance hat of collecting money from people. A third hat that they have to wear up front in many cases. So the whys and wherefores of their posts and their relationships to other posts and the communication lines which connects them. So they have to understand how they interact with other people in the organization and how to handle the communication lines. That's a huge organizational element of being an executive. These are attributes that you must have in being an executive. Different from the owner hat, different than the therapist hat, right? And the one that I'm going to go over today the most, a commonly dropped hat, ability to get something done via another person. It's a very unique skill, by the way. It takes a special skill set to become adept at this. And this is the thing that I found when I left the organization that dropped out most readily, because my executives are pretty good at organizing. They have very good knowledge of the organization and can perform the posts at which they've, the posts that they're managing or supervising, they can definitely do it better. But the one that drops out is getting others to get things done as opposed to doing them yourself, or just not pressing through to the full done, to the completion per the definition of an executive. So these three attributes are easily the most important attributes required to become or be an effective executive. We could do a whole seminar on each one of these, Carrie, but we're just going to zero in on number 3 here. So another catch-all statement. This is some data I took from an article in the management training that I've done with survival strategies in the past. So I reviewed this, and this is built into our executive hats in our company. So these are followed, meaning those 3 attributes that I just previously mentioned, these are followed by the other side of an executive's activities, which consist of planning, organizing, and promotion. So I'm definitely every week, even though I live in Nashville, Tennessee, my company is, or my clinics are back in Kansas. I work on, I have a planning hat every week. I do have an organizing hat. Luckily, I have a great VP of administration or office manager or administrative director, or whatever synonymous term you want to use. That's great at organizing. So I work through her, but I do my planning and organizing through her. And then promotion, I definitely am very much involved in a promotional hat. I was just telling Carrie this morning before we got on, I did an interview yesterday with a marketing company that we hired, and had someone interview me to pull out of me. We pulled out content in 70 minutes. I was speaking for 70 minutes. We pulled out content for 12 vlog video, videos that we're going to make. They'll turn into blogs, and to up our to optimize our website and our web presence, our SEO, if you will. I very much still have a promotional hat, even though I'm not, physically in the clinic. So these are followed. Those 3 things are followed by the other side of the executive's activities: planning, organizing, and promotion, as well as either setting up or gaining compliance with organizational policy. This is, as you guys can see, this is a big ass job being an executive. And I'm going to go now zero in on. I went to broad strokes there. I'm going to zero in on 3 vital things that you have to get your executive team doing. If you don't have an executive team and you're a solopreneur, which I doubt that that's probably the case in here, but ideally you would have at least 3 executives in your company so that you can divide and conquer in some of these areas that I'm going to go over. I already mentioned, the administrative area, the organizing part of it, HR and onboarding staff and the organizational elements. Then the technical delivery, which most of us are trained in. Most owners, probably came from that technical area of expertise where they're trained for 6 or 7 years or whatever, and then the PR and marketing. So there's 3 vital hats your executive team now need to know and wear for growth, viability, and profitability. Grow the clinic, improve the viability, which is the life ability. I like to call it the life ability. The sustainable value of your practice. What's your practice really worth? Do you have money in reserves? Do you have so much energy flowing in and through the company that it's continually viable? It's not roller coastering, and of course profitable. So here you go. So you have to establish the organization. There's a term called the establishment officer. You don't have to use this term. It's just a technical term that can be used. It's describing the hiring or the procurement, the hiring, recruitment, hiring, and onboarding of your staff, and then getting them trained on their posts so they can be established as a teammate, a productive member of your team. This would be just establishing everybody in your organization, recruiting them, hiring them, onboarding them, training them until they can get products, right? That's one part. Then organizing the staff and its workflows. I talked about, my VP admin, Janet is her name, killer at organizing, very much understands our organizational workflows and the, manning up the staff, the flow of the coordination of the communication lines, getting people in the right place, and just, tweaking, if you will, the flows of the organization. So that would be an organizing officer. I have a killer organizing officer in our company. She also happens to do a lot of the establishment, although we just hired a full-time or a part-time person, meaning a person that only is just working on recruitment. Because of the size of our company, we probably should have done it earlier. You guys all know what's going on in the workforce right now. It's just hiring tends to be one of the biggest problems people have. So we have someone that's a part of the establishment team. She is now establishing, the hiring officer in my company, but they are distinctively different roles. The one that I'm going to talk to you about that's dropping out is the person that makes sure the products get produced in volume every day, every week, and that's called the product officer. So in an ideal situation, you'd have 3 people just, doing these 3 different functions to establish one to establish your organization, one to organize it, and one to bring the work home and just get it done. I think of a family when I look at this, right? The parents really establish the family. I know in my family, my wife did the rest of the stuff. She got the hats on the kids. She did most of that because I was, working all the time. It's funny. I've always wore this product officer hat because it's, it's still to this day. It's like, how come you can tell them to do something and they just freaking do it, right? It's that hat, and they will actually listen to me because I have the presence or the beingness of a product officer. Not because they're scared of me, because I'm not scary. I am a big guy, but I'm not a scary guy. But I've always wore that hat. I use the family as an example. And my wife is definitely the organizing officer. Do not ask me what the schedule is. Do not ask me where anything's at. Do not ask me to organize the flow lines in the company. Even to this day, because we have 3 kids and 7 grandkids, she has to direct me through the organization and is continuously reestablishing me on where to go and what to do. But I definitely make sure, things get done. I produce, definitely produce the income, and I can definitely, when it's showing up to go on a trip, I know the beat. I've been given my hat and my rules. I know how to make it a great trip and make sure we get things done on time and economically, or whatever the case may be. I'm using the family example to show you guys that this happens in every organization. My wife and I established the family together. She organizes it. I'm the product officer, the production guy, or I run the production of the activity. And we actually manage by statistics, believe it or not. Even in our household, I look at statistics every Saturday morning on how we're doing, at least financially. We do that together. And we apply this to our life. I like to use the family example because so you can see the differences, because a lot of companies do not have, they blend it. Like one person tries to do all this, tries to do the hiring and the onboarding, the organizing when they can, and then tries to make sure that a few products get put off the line or come off the line, completed plans of care and the money collected and the patients recovered, onto the schedule for the cancellations and no-shows, and the new patients get in and the promo goes out, and the list goes on, right? You guys get the concept there, that if you had someone fully establishing people along the way, another person handling all the organizational workflows, and another person going in and making sure the production occurs, it would grow, it would be viable, and it would be a profitable activity. So I'm going to focus in on the product officer hat. So the CEO or executive director is the product officer, typically the senior product officer, over the company's whole production. And when it comes to what I was talking about before in my company, because I have a VP of administration who's the office manager, admin director, she's running the HR functions, making sure marketing's going out, and also it's tracking the amount of communication that goes out in marketing, and then the billing and collection functions of the organization, where my my VPO operations or clinic director is doing the clinical production, all the visits and evals and charges and documentation, all that. He's a product officer of all that. And then my PR and marketing director is making sure that the referrals are there, the new business is coming in, and that the PR functions of the organization are happening. And I'm over all 3 of those. And I'm to make sure those 3 are getting their products. So check this out. So you must wear or get worn the product officer hat of the company as the CEO or executive director, unless you have a big enough company where you can just assign someone to do nothing but make sure that there's a push going on to get the products of the company produced. So this comes out of an article that I wrote about the product officer hat. This is my hat as well as my senior executive hats. This is what I've given to them in an article. And this is a quote from one section. It says, our biggest challenge into the future, so I'm talking to futures here when I'm talking to them, is in getting more of the staff knowing, practicing, and regularly doing the following on their posts. One, that they know their products. If there's a named product, that would be something that is, is valuable, and that it is completed, and that is exchangeable with the public. For example, a quality visit, right? Delivering a single visit with a great end result that's valuable to the patient and valuable to the company, because we can get, the services collected upon to pay our staff, right? It has to be completed, which means the documentation needs to be done. The patient needs to be happy, and you have to produce a valuable outcome. So they have to know what their product was, as well as then obviously someone who's completed their full plan of care, right? Number two, deciding that they want their product. So not only does your staff need to know what their product is or products are, I gave the front desk example, right? They might have three: routing and communication, effective routing and communication, collecting for services due or funds for services due, and making sure people arrive that are scheduled, right? Those are three different products. They don't know all three of them and what they're dealing with at the time. They can get very confused or drop one of those hats, if you will. So they have to decide that they want all three of those. In that case, I gave on the front desk. Number three, planning how they are going to get a viable level of products, because someone can know what their product is, and they can decide they want it, but they may not decide or know exactly how much of it that they need to get for the company to be viable. So that's really important point to know. They got to know it, they got to want it, and they got to know how much of it they've got to get. And then, of course, measuring their production of their products, trends by statistics every day or every week, depending on where they're at in the company. Ideally, they'd be looking at the production every day and see it accumulate through the week. Some of our statistics are weekly. Most of them are daily. Even though they'd be a daily stat, we'll total them at the end of the week to track our progress so we can see those trends. So I said the CEO or executive director is the product officer, the overall product officer of the company. Here's the product officer's role. A product officer names, much similar to what I showed you before on being able to get this done of your juniors. A product officer names, wants, and gets products of the organization and ensures, you make sure, right, that they are accomplishing its purpose to service the public well. You can't, by the way, just press on the number. I never go in and press on just a statistic. I want to know, for example, at the front desk, how many new people we've helped today. How many, if I'm going to look at the starts, I want to know how many new ones we've helped. I don't just ask, hey, what's the statistic on the starts? How many of the new patients that were scheduled arrived, right? We have a statistic that measures scheduled versus seen on the new ones. Do the same one, obviously, the same thing for sure overall for all the visits in the clinic. But I want to know, how many people did we have the opportunity to help today, and how many did we help? That's a much more clear statement of purpose as opposed to statistics. And then he or she, that product officer, is solely interested in the products. I'm not there to organize for someone else. I may disrupt. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. I'll use the family example. You can come into a room and totally disrupt a scene if something's not getting done that's supposed to be getting done, and someone else was organizing something in a real orderly fashion. The good product officer goes in and makes sure the work's getting done, and that at all costs that we get people seen. I don't care how screwed up the schedule might look or be, or how dysfunctional it might be. I want to make sure we see the patients, right? I want to see that we deliver the service well and get the outcomes. I don't care so much how. I just want to make sure it's done. It's more of an attitude, right? I'm not saying that I genuinely don't care, but when I'm wearing that hat, I don't care. I just want it to get done, right? It's like the coach of the team or the quarterback of the team, just making sure that everybody does their job, and the play gets executed. They don't care how ugly it is. They just care that it gets done, that we push the ball across the goal line. I used to play football, so I use that analogy. So when the product officer comes across a situation that requires organizing, he gets the organizing officer or the office manager, VP admin, administrative director, whatever term you're using to handle it. You might even be wearing that hat. You might be the person that organizes. That's fine. You're not wearing that hat when you're trying to get someone to get the job done, or get the visit executed on, get the person recovered back on the schedule, get the money collected. I understand that there's a financial difficulty with this patient. The policy is that we collect payment at the time of service. So at a minimum, you walk away with it, there with an agreement and some money today, right, on how to do that. My wife was great at this. She used to be the organizing officer, but when she was wearing a collections hat, she had to collect the money. I remember one patient coming in, she was the product officer. She knew she was going to get it done. The patient comes in, gives that PR line and says, "Oh, I left it home. I've got the check. It's laying at home." She goes, "Great, I'll get my coat. Let's go get it." Patient's done with their visit. I mean, that's like seeing it through to a done, right? Like the money's going to get done today. It's like, I'll go with you. Let's go get it. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a ride. Because sometimes, I don't know if you notice this, that people and staff don't always tell you the truth, but the product officer will get the product done no matter what, and then let the organizing officer clean up things later. So the organizing officer should be operating a few steps ahead of the product officer. Hopefully you're in coordination and organizing for immediate production. I usually give Janet, my VP of admin, a heads up if I'm going to go into an area and disrupt the production and push it through to get more things done. And she can come back behind me and clean it up with organization and retrain people as needed. I'm not there to train people. I'm being the product officer. I'm there to get the product. And so it's really, you can see it's very much of a viewpoint that can never drop out, because people will become very reasonable, meaning going into agreement with why something can't be done, or, oh my gosh, we can't do that, or, oh, they had an upset, or, there's all kinds of reasons why things can't be done. The product officer is not interested in any of those. The product officer is just interested in getting people service. And I'm going to give you more data on what that really means here in a second, but you must have, stats or products that you're measuring. We use a lot of logs. I can look at, every major workflow in our company from right here. Right now, I could pull up, obviously what the schedule looks like, and what the cancellation no-shows look like. Whatever, every new patient or referral, I can look at leads that come in off of our promotional actions. I can look at the revenue. I mean, I've already looked at the revenue for the day, but look at what hits the bank, and then throughout the day, I can look at what money gets deposited through the mail. I can see all of that in present time, as well as expenses that are paid out on the accounting system. I can see everything. Throughout the day or throughout the week, a good product officer can operate off of data. So check it out. This is a statement of the value, the valuable final products of my post, okay, of the CEO or executive director. I look at fully serviced, completed, and paid patients and clients, meaning how many patients completed their service for the day or the week, okay, how many completed visits, but more importantly, how many discharged patients that were highly satisfied and completely paid, meaning obviously they wouldn't be really fully completed unless the bill was paid. So zero balance accounts would be something that could be counted. But I want to know that people are getting service, completing service, and paying for services. It's basically that. And the second product is the high quality promotional items in the hands of volumes of public who start our services. We are driven, maybe, I mean, it can be a little bit different in the pediatric practices, but I know in the adult sector, we turn over our new patients pretty regularly. So we require a certain amount of new patients every week to start. So I have to make sure all of our promotional and PR actions are effective, meaning they get into hands of people who actually start service. So while I look at the amount and quality of the promotion, I also equally look at whether it's driving people in the door. So did they start? Did they finish? Did they pay? Really, really simple, right? There's a number of sub products that go underneath that though. Check this out. So I'm going to look at the amount of promotion out. That happens every day in our company. We send out a huge volume of promotion every week. So I'm tracking that as well as the quality. Even those videos I was, those videos I'll shoot as a result of the scripts that are getting written right now from yesterday's interview, and improve the quality of it as well as the quantity. The number of active referral sources every week. The most correlative, one of the most correlative, it is the most correlative statistic in our company for starts and for revenue is number of people sending us business. Of course, the evaluations, the visits, accrual charges. I work on an accrual basis. We convert everything from the actual charges and cash dollars to what we are very predictive. We can predict within a half of a percentage point what's the value of the service we deliver every day of every week, and track that very closely. So I want to know the value of everything we delivered. Obviously, the patient pays, or the patient's paying their responsibility. Insurance pays are going to get covered in the total money deposited. And then, like I said before, these successful completions, how many happy people walked, how many happy people completed their services or care each week at discharge. Super, super important. If that one was rising, look at, check out all of those right there. If that bottom one was continually on the rise, we know all the others should be in tow. I'll still have to go in and look at them, but if we had more and more successfully completed patients, then the starts would be there. And as long as we're collecting the money, we would be super viable and certainly expanding. And these other things would have to fall underneath it. So that's why I showed you the other product first. So I picked this picture just because I like it, this dude in the background. So wearing this product officer hat takes purpose. You have to define them, maybe more than one. There's going to be a purpose for every post in your company. There's going to be a purpose for every product in your company. There's going to be a purpose, for every plan of care per se. But you have to have a well-defined purpose for everybody you go and engage with and interact with to push through to a done on these products. And it takes practice. I had to drill this. I had to drill the concept of how I would handle objections or resistance or pushback. I like to use the family atmosphere as an example. I know getting kids to get things done in the family environment can be challenging sometimes, but every parent has a product officer hat. Luckily, I'm just really good. I became really good at it, both with the kids and in the company, to get others to get things done for the way we build the title of this particular webinar. But it takes practice and drilling. You have to know what people are going to say and come up with as objections to getting their products. And typically they just don't know the purpose of it. They don't know the purpose of your post. They don't know the purpose of their hat or their post in the company. And it takes certainly persistence, staying at it until it's done. I think that in a lot of cases, I don't think I know because I've seen this, and I've seen this demonstrated by my junior executives, is I have to be persistent with my guys just to get them to go back in. I said, look, you have to go in and reissue that order, or go in and ask and or get them to do it one more time. And you just stay at it until it becomes a habit or routine. If someone needs to be trained, for sure, send them off to training. But in the meantime, just get them to get it done and recognize that they need some more training. That isn't your hat, though. You aren't there to train them when you're being the product officer. You will find that if you don't stay persistent, the staff thinks you're just going to go away and not bring it up again and mention it. They think they can out-persist you, and you can't let it happen, because if you have the right purpose defined, if you have the right product defined, if you're measuring it with statistics, you can see it through. It just takes practice and it just takes persistence to get that job done. So Carrie, I told you I would get done really fast, and let me stop the share. And that was like drinking from a fire hose, I'm sure, because I sell a lot. But trust me, oh my gosh, I only have four cameras on. You guys, it'd be great if you turn your cameras on, because I'd love to interact with you guys and answer any questions on this, because I covered a lot of data there, and I'm happy to either answer questions or just share some experiences with you on the not so much the how-tos, but the viewpoint to approach this from. I'm curious whether any of you guys have to wear this hat. If you could either put in the chat or raise your hand if it's real to you that this is a hat that you have to wear in your company. Kristen, is this something you got to do? Yeah. Alicia? Yeah. Christine? Yeah. Good. Jessica's got a frozen face. Yeah,
Me
Carrie
too.
definitely. Yeah, Carrie's got people working under her watch. And, it's really important to be aware of the difference between that hat and the urge to want to organize something or train someone, because the establishment is really the hatting and the training. And when you're in the middle of a production cycle, there's nothing wrong with just getting it done, by the way, and figuring it out how to do it better later. You're not going to hurt anybody if you're approaching something with the right purpose in mind. And I really stress that one. It's a very purpose-driven activity. It's like, hey, Kristen, I'm here to help you, get your job done here. Let's look at what's happening, how much of this is occurring, and what you have targeted out, what's the lineup look like, what's it going to take to get this done. Just give them the problem, and then they'll either give you problems back, their problems, by the way, or try to, or they'll just really dive in and solve it, and or ask for help. It's like, gosh, I don't know how to do this. Okay, that's great. Well, let me tell you what. Why don't you just call this person right now and get them in, and then tell me how that went. But I'll help you with that later. We'll get that handled later. I'll have you go see Janet, and I'll make a note of that. But that's not what I'm here to do. Is train you. I'm here to help you get this done. And it's really a viewpoint that's super, super important. So any questions on this? Because I should stop talking for a little bit. I'd love to hear from you guys, or even comments on whether this concept's helpful to you or not.
I have a question for you. Can you go over how you elicit or kind of spark that or define that purpose? What's some successful actions on that, since that's
well, hey, what's really important, and I'm gonna on my end, I'll pull the slide up. There was one slide that really lays out the one that's laid out before the thing that from the article I wrote. If they have to know their product first of all. So what's really helpful, if you see a lack of ability to really zero in on importances of what they need to be leaning into the most, because there should be a gradient scale of importances for the functions of any particular post on what someone needs to do right day to day or week to week. So as far as the purpose, you need to sit down with your staff. What makes this a lot easier is hopefully you've got a job description that has somewhere in the first page will have the purpose of the post and the product or the products of the post. Okay, and you really just have to go over that with them. They have to really understand what products you're measuring and why they need to get that product, why that's the product of their post or that division that they work in. So you have to do what's called product clearing or purpose clearing with these folks first. Then when you go in, you've already got a prior agreement. There's a series of agreements that you need to build on here, but having a prior agreement is really helpful. And that's where the organizing and the hatting ahead of the product officer coming in to bomb the scene really comes in handy. Because if they really aren't zeroed in on the purpose, nobody's probably sat down with them. Rather than just telling them and or having them just read it, you have to really engage with that person. They have to know the product, know the purpose of that product, know how much of it is really needed from their viewpoint. They really have to have it as their own viewpoint. They have to own that purpose. And I would go one step further. This is something I did with them. I would find out how this job contributes to their own purposes in life. I think that's a really important point. You sit down with a job description, you say, look, this is what I need and want out of you. This is why you're doing this post. This is the purpose of this post. This is the product that I'm going to measure. Here's all the duties. Here's all the stuff. Here's all the here's all the things you have to do. Now let's go back and say, look, if we were to hit this viable target, or the amount of production that we're going to build you up to, what would this mean for you? And why would this be important for you to do this? So you got to clear their own purposes. And if you align their purpose with the company's purpose, man, that's where you really win the game. When they zero in on because it can't, look, nobody shows up at Rebound to make money for Paul and Rocks. And quite frankly, the money's not the purpose for me either. It's a byproduct of a job well done for the whole crew and the whole staff. But I definitely zero in. We do that on the interviews, particularly when you start someone on a post. When you're going to ask them to forward a purpose that you have, you better know what theirs is. And so I'm glad you brought that up, Carrie. That's a great question, because that is really the simplest way to do it. And you do that. That's part of the establishment process, by the way. But knowing the product and wanting the product and knowing how much of it to get, and then knowing how to go get it. That is a part of the establishment phase of your production cycle. And if that isn't done, you're going to have a harder time becoming an effective product officer. You're going to be pushing against something that just isn't going to move very easily. Or let me put it this way, it's not going to move on its own. It's only going to move because you keep pushing on it. Now, you're still going to have to keep pushing on it to go to the next level of expansion, but it's a lot easier when you get someone high producing and then they get so productive, you give them help. Oh my gosh, they love it. Now they've got to do the same thing to someone else. Then you have a group. Then you have a group taking care of each other. And you have someone that's become so productive, they require assistance. But you have to hire someone now. And then luckily they'll get to help train them. You don't have to train them if you've got that person really wearing their hat. So I'm getting into another hat here, but you can see how they work together. Great question.
And where did you learn to implement this? Like what part, what program did you do?
Yeah, so I was really good at the PR and marketing side of things. So I got trained in referral relationship development and driving in new business. I knew that's how I was going to grow my company years ago. So I did that, and then my company went from 5 or 6 people to 25 people pretty fast. And so my world was like shaking. Not like the wheels were rattling, and I was like, oh my God, and it was super fun because we were taking care of a lot of people. I was fulfilling that purpose, but I was super uncomfortable and super like out of my realm because I was really not a good executive. I was not good at management. I was good at PR. I was a really good physical therapist, sucked at being an executive. So I did management training with survival strategy, did the management program. Then I did the advanced management program, which was a custom program they made for me. I'm like, please. So while my world got calm and quiet, I had a team then. I had those 3 executives I was talking about. 2 of the 3 are still with me today. One of them moved on, but I've had my senior executive team for 16 years. And these guys are fully established. But it was the training and the drilling. I put intentionally on that last slide, I put purpose, and then you got to practice. I drilled. The way I became good at it was I took most of those objections and drilled them with my guys and put myself in a position. But I also did it with my consultant first. The management training, Carrie can get you data on that. It's the management program that Survival Strategies has. Very robust, very comprehensive, very complete program. Probably one of the most complete programs that I've ever done. Took me it's funny. The other thing that I did that just reminds me, and Carrie asked a great question. I made the commitment at that time too, regardless of the training that I was doing and the work that I was doing with the consultant that was product officering me through the program, apprenticing me, which I never had anybody apprentice me. Guess what? As a PT, I was apprenticed through my clinicals and my internships. The cool thing about the training with survival strategies, it's not a bunch of theory. You do an apprenticeship. I call it an apprenticeship. I think they call it an internship. Apprenticeship, where someone is making sure you get through the establishment steps. You get established as an executive. But what I did personally on the side was I said, okay, I'm going to study this subject 1 hour a day. I'm going to do 5 hours a week. It took me 7 years to become a PT. I took 5 hours a week of extra study to become an executive. And then I made the choice later after 3 to 5 years later, I went, okay, company does better when I'm wearing this hat, and more patients get seen when I'm out marketing or running the company. So I said, this isn't so bad. And it gave me more freedom to do things with the kids. Now the kids are, they have their own kids. We got 7 grandkids, and but when the kids were in high school and college and all that, we got to travel and see them. because I was an executive and not stuck in the clinic. And it was the training, and it was the extra step, and then the drilling. Yeah, for sure. You know, I can still, here's the cool thing. I'm not on a program of survival strategies, and I do this for free. I just say, hey, I want to help you guys. I can call the CEO of the company and I go, Craig, I'm having troubles with X, Y, and Z. And he'll either give me a reference, or I know what I need to go back to my guys with, and I just drill with my guys. I put them in those scenarios and we just role play. And until it's so much harder to role play, particularly with me, because I'm the owner, CEO of the company or whatever, they get nervous and whatever. I used to do the same thing with the consultant. I used to sweat harder with them than I do with my staff. And then when I actually get into the situation with my staff where I've got a product off the shrimp, it's easy because I've already handled the objection. And it's usually my own objections. It's funny. Here's the deal. I'll give you guys a piece of advice. Carrie, you just started, you opened Pandora's box here by asking this question. The things you're having troubles with are the things that you have troubles handling are the things you have a problem with yourself. It's the things that you don't want to do or are unwilling to do yourself. And you just have to work through that. That's what I found anyway. If you got someone at the front desk has got problems with money, you know, I'll give you a real example. If they have problems with money, they're going to have problems asking people for money. So you better get them handled on that. If they have problems, you know, I don't know, with a certain kind of patient, someone who's antagonistic or angry and they're not wanting to confront angry people, then you better get in a room and get pissed off with them, not at them. Give them a pissed off situation and just drill it until it goes away. And it's the same way with me. You know, the problems I have in my company are the things that I'm either not confronting or I'm not, you know, seeking enhancement or training on. Once I learned that, it made it really simple. It just took the pressure off. I'm like, okay, well, I'm choosing to let it be that way. I mean, I get what I tolerate, right? You know, things happen to me, not because of me. I'm sorry, things don't happen to me, they happen because of me. And once I realized that as an executive and owner, I went, oh, okay, cool. Well, there's probably someone that knows more than I do on how to do this better. I found it a lot more time efficient to get trained than just run away from it. So yeah.
I love that.
It's my testimonial. So
I wanted to launch the little survey, if you guys don't mind. We're doing a little poll so that we can find out some other topics that you'd be interested in Paul providing. So I just sent that. This is my first poll. I've never done it before. So hopefully you can see it. And if you just take a couple of moments and answer the 4 questions, that would be lovely. And that'll definitely give us more information as to what we can have Paul speak to and share his expertise, because he's definitely experienced all the things and mastered them.
I went ahead and took the survey just from my own viewpoint.
Yeah, I'd love that.
This is such a quiet group. Oh my gosh. I either covered it really well or nobody, or you guys are afraid of me or something. I don't know. Hopefully you found it helpful so far, but again, we got enough time. I can answer questions or.
I was going to ask something.
Yep.
Hey,
Hi.
I don't know if I missed it, but did you say that you were the establishment officer and the production officer?
No. I said Janet, my admin director actually does she's done, you know, the hiring, the onboarding. And what we realized through our progression, we've been able to find, you know, decent staff. Lately, it's just more of a problem with the clinical staff, the volume, getting the right volume in. She was also the organizing officer. She also did a lot of the organizational functions and kept the workflows going, you know, debugging things, if you will, when there was confusions in the communication lines or just getting things organized and workflows. Particularly as you're expanding, you have to reorganize the workflows, right? And move people around. And what we found is that when we were falling down or not expanding, is we didn't fully establish the folks that The areas that we had problems with, or the people that were overwhelmed, is because, you know, they didn't get fully had it or fully trained. Or we had a few people doing, you know, many jobs, and all we needed to do was hire someone and tuck them in underneath that person that knew what they're doing and fully establish a junior underneath them. So she ended up, it has been doing that. We just hired, you know, within the last several months, we're apprenticing a hiring officer. Now we got the hiring side covered now, and she's going to start focusing on establishment. And then she's going to be hiring someone to assist her also with organizing. But, you know, we've got, you know, close to 50 staff. So we, you know, we have to have those, you know, we should already have those posts filled. So, you know, confessing my inadequacies here on the things that I missed. But when I look at this system, it's a really workable system. And, you know, to a certain level, every executive has to be aware of these things, of whether it needs to be, you know, just press through to it done, better organized, or someone trained. And that if you have someone in your, even if it's the same person, when they're wearing that hat, just let them wear that hat. If someone was just training a certain amount of time every week, establishing people, great. At that point in time, they're an establishment officer, and they can still be the organizing officer. I find that the product officer is the one that screws everything up sometimes, though, too. They can just go in, just like, whoa, you know, just, you know how it is. Like, I use the dad thing when I come home. It's like everything goes crazy. But when the kids were younger, it's like, oh, but I could get them to get things done, but we also had fun, too. And it like sometimes created chaos. And product officers do that sometimes. That's just my warning shot. But yeah, good question. Ideally, you've got someone doing each of those things independently, but
We're working towards it.
yeah, good. Yeah, just being aware of it helps to know what hat you're wearing when. I still have to organize things. Even that definition of executive says I'm still planning and organizing and promoting. And I'm doing, those are 3 different functions. I'm not doing all 3 of them at the same time. I'm only doing one at a time. I plan things out. I work with Janet on the organizing part of it to reorganize workflows. Sometimes I'm doing a pilot program. I have to organize the whole thing. If I'm starting something new, I piloted it. I'm organizing it, and then until it's turned over. What you do as an owner and an innovator all the time, you're always trying new stuff. Other questions? These are good. Got 5 more minutes. Actually, we have all the time you guys want. I'm not stuck on time. So, any others? Cool. Well, hopefully you guys found that helpful. I think it's as much of a viewpoint as it is anything. It's really to me, it's the one that it's the most important one for me, because it's a prime part of my hat, because I've surrounded my people. I've been blessed. My wife was a great organizer. Her and I started the company. She was the org officer, assisted with hiring. We kind of did hiring together. And I trained therapists. She trained office staff. So guess what? We had them all covered. She was organizing, and she would have one part of the staff. I'd have the other part, and I was always the product officer. And then when we sit in a board meeting, when it's board of directors talking to the executive director, guess who's the product officer then? My wife was, because I also happened to be the CEO, and she would say, literally, we'd sit in a meeting. She's like, we'd look at the data. She'd look at it, and she goes, well, it sounds like it's a problem with the CEO or the executive director. It sounds like your problem, Paul. You know, so having that person is invaluable to say, look, dude, you're not getting your job done. Or, you know, the product is not occurring in your area. It shows up in the trend. What do you see? Yeah, well, it's really not a difficult thing to do if you have empirical data. You just have to be willing to deal with human emotion and reaction, which is a whole other subject that you guys should learn. You learn about in the management program, by the way. But I'm doing training with I'm flying back to Kansas Friday, all day Saturday on this holiday week, whatever. I mean, the work week. Our staff's going to get paid extra to come in. I'm going to drill the billing and collection staff on the subject of money and communication. So I'm going to be in the area of training or establishment with Janet, with our front desk staff. I'm going to share the knowledge we've learned over the years. And then the following Saturday, I'm staying through the week. The following Saturday, I'm training my clinic directors on a big part of their hat, which is really the subject of, you know, drilling down to the purpose and the product of what they're doing and how to plan their week based upon the production that's needed or required. So I'll be drilling them on getting, in part, getting this hat on with their juniors. So it's a continual thing. I've been doing this been a PT for 35 years, and private practice for 28 years. And training is the thing that's going to make the biggest difference with my guys. Okay, Carrie, anybody else? Any other? I don't see anything in the chat, so. Thanks
Thank
for
you
your
so
comments.
much.
Yeah, you bet. I enjoyed it. You guys, put this to work, and if you don't have a consultant, at least do an analysis or something with these guys, because I learn more just by being analyzed. I love looking at where I'm at. It drives me to go to the next level. So appreciate you guys getting on today, and over to Carrie for any wrap up.
There's just one other thing. Nancy asked me to let everyone know that at the upcoming conference that she's hosting in Orlando in October, we'll be posting things on the Private Practice Network and Survival Strategies page as well, that she's going to be hosting a roundtable for the adult PT field. And there will be some other things that she's releasing in regards to that to help support your practices, as well as for the pediatric practices. So definitely keep your eyes open for that. And that's all. Thank you so much for joining. We'll see you next month.
Bye, guys.